Okay, well, welcome here. My name is Raymond Convalius, and I'm here to do a short presentation on how you can join your Windows 10 systems to Azure AD in 5 easy steps. I'm from the Netherlands, so you may hear from my accent that I'm not from here. Usually I work with companies to upgrade Windows to the latest levels and work with them on Microsoft technology. Today we're going to present on Azure AD. So why would you join Windows 10 to Azure AD? We already have our systems joined to Active Directory, and that's easy. That's easy for on-prem. So why would you join to Azure AD? Well, there's a number of reasons that you do want to join Azure AD. One of them is especially when you're having your data in the cloud, you want to make sure that your data can be accessed only by your systems. So conditional access is one of them. You want to make sure that your data in the cloud is secure and can only be accessed by your systems. You also want to provide usability for your clients. Single sign-on is something that's really easy if you move your data to the cloud and you want to make sure that your users can access your information from their systems with single sign-on even when it's in the cloud. You have single sign-on on-prem. With Azure AD Join, you get single sign-on in the cloud. And then there is mobile device management. Intune, if you want to manage your devices with Intune, it's easy if you connect your Azure AD Join with your device registration in Intune. And last but not least, enterprise state roaming. We all hate roaming profiles. And Microsoft is finally finding ways to get rid of the roaming profile. And one of them is by joining your systems into Azure AD and make sure that from that moment on you are able to roam your settings in the cloud. Even if your systems are on-prem, they can roam their settings in the cloud, and it's kind of a no-hassle, easy, one single configuration thing, and all your settings are in the cloud for all your users. So I said it's 5 easy steps. The first step that you have to make is make sure that you are present with your directory in Azure AD. So you have to create a tenant. How do you create a tenant? Well, I'll tell you more about that later. If you've done that, you have to enable device registration. That's part of the configuration of your tenant. And when you do that, you have to make sure that your DNS entries are there to make sure that your clients are able to find your tenant in Azure AD. Then you have to create your client IDs, make sure that your users are known in Azure Active Directory, and then it's time to do the join. So, first of all, you have to create an Azure Active Directory. The easiest way to do that is by creating your own tenant in Office 365, so that's kind of the easy way. And there is a way to do that without using a credit card. Simon May published an article like a year ago already. That's this one. This article. And this article, it's about getting started with the Microsoft Enterprise Mobility Suite. It contains links that you can create trials for Office 365 and for EMS without using a credit card. All you need is your phone. And you can start a trial, and you're up and running in like 20 minutes to have your own testing environment running and ensure that you can just join your systems into Azure Active Directory. I think it took me less than half an hour to get it fixed. If you have Office 365, you have Mail, you have SharePoint, you have Skype for Business. And if you want to have enterprise mobility, you want to have Intune, want to have extra features in Azure, you can also join the trial for EMS. I highly recommend you to try EMS because it will really extend your possibilities over there. And of course you can use the Azure portal. You do require the Azure portal for some parts of the configuration. So if you don't have Azure yet, you also have to make sure that you have an Azure Access portal to actually configure your Active Directory. So then, you have the trial set up, you're in Active Directory, You can start managing your Active Directory from the Azure portal. The most important part there is the devices part, where you can start configuring who may join Active Directory, which of your users are able to join Active Directory. And you have to ensure that you know upfront that if users are able to join their device to Active Directory themselves, they will be the local administrator on their own systems. So if you want someone else to be the local administrator, you have to make someone else do the join. You can define who are the additional local administrators on those systems, but those will be extra. So there is always the one who joins the system who is local administrator, and then there is somebody else, there may be somebody else that you assign here. You can also require the users to have multi-factor authentication when they join Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, I should say. So this might be something that you require from a security standpoint to make sure that you are compliant. And then there is, of course, the maximum number of users. This is actually one way of making sure that your users are joining Active Directory. The other way of joining your systems in Active Directory is when you already have your local Active Directory, then you can choose to automatically register your systems in Azure Active Directory. You have to make sure that you are already synchronizing your local Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. And then you can use a group policy that makes sure that all your clients are automatically registering in Azure Active Directory. And then there is nothing here needed. Then there's just your local users with your local systems who are automatically registered in Active Directory. As part of joining Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, I should say, you can also make sure that your systems are registered in Intune as well. This is just a single configuration where you can tell, well, if those users join Active Directory, those users who are a member of this group or all your users, then they will automatically be registered in Intune. And at that moment, they get the policies from Intune, and you can start managing those systems from Intune. So then it's the only thing that those users have to do is join Azure Active Directory, and they are automatically managed by Intune. For the DNS part, it's kind of simple. For Azure Domain Join, you only need one DNS entry. Of course, when you start working with Office 365, there's a number of DNS entries that are required to make your mail work and Skype work and SharePoint and everything. But for device registration, it's only this that you need. So that's the first part. Then there have to be users in Azure Active Directory. Usually, if you already are running your local Active Directory, you will use some kind of dir sync to synchronize your local users to Active Directory. And then you have to decide if and how where your users will authenticate. Will they authenticate in the cloud or will they authenticate on-prem? If they authenticate on-prem, you have to make sure that you have an ADFS infrastructure available and make sure it's highly available if you want to make sure that your users are always capable of doing the authentication on-prem. So, and this is also where you have to decide where the admins are living and who will be able to use those, who will be able to join the systems to Azure Active Directory. So, joining Azure Active Directory is something that you can do in two ways. Actually, it's three ways. The first one I was telling about, you can automatically register your AD join systems to Azure Active Directory. Other ways are from your Windows 10 systems that are not yet domain joined. There is UBI, the out-of-the-box experience, where users are asked, well, is this system your own user, or is it your own system, or is this the system of your company? And if it is the system of your company, you are capable of joining it into Azure Active Directory. You can also hand out the provisioning package to the user to do that. But it's part of the enterprise queue that you can join your system into Active Directory from the start. If you have an already running system, is my sound still there? Then you can actually create a secondary account on your system by adding the Azure ID to the already logged on user to join the domain. So in Ubi it looks like this. You get the question, who owns this PC? And then you can log on using your Azure ID. And with your Azure ID, you can just enter your credentials. If you set up a policy, it will ask you for a PIN. The PIN will be the alternate way to log on to your system. And then you are actually Azure AD joined. From that moment on, you are able to log on to your system with your Azure AD account. It's just like that. You log on as if it is your normal account that you use for everyday use. From that moment on, you can use single sign-on for all your Azure resources. It's just an easy way of working. And your settings are being roamed if you have configured that setting in your Azure AD tenant. If you have a system that is already running in a work group, then you can also you can join Azure AD as well, but it will be different because when you add an account, it's becoming a secondary account. So there is you being logged on as your Microsoft account, and then there is you being logged on with your secondary account. And from that moment on, there's actually two persons logged on to that system. It's the company user on the system, and there's the private user on the system, where the company user is managed by the company, gets its policies from Intune, and the private user can still get his applications from the Windows Store and everything. So enrolling here is a little bit different, but it's about the same. You sign on, you enter the username, enter the PIN if it's required by the policy. And from that moment on, you have a second user account on your system. So there's two users on your system, and you can use it both for personal use and for business use. There's a number of considerations here that you have to think of when you start using Azure Domain Join. First of all, I was already telling about where will your users authenticate? Will they authenticate in the cloud? Well, that's kind of easy because passwords will be synchronized to the cloud. Cloud is always available, not very hard to manage, but not every company is feeling secure when the passwords are staying in the cloud. If you don't want your passwords in the cloud, you will have to create your own ADFS infrastructure. But make sure it's highly available, because if a user tries to access cloud resources and your ADFS infrastructure is not available, your users will not be able to access your resources. Then there is the cloud join process itself. It's a process that up till now is not capable of being automated. So there is no PowerShell command to join your system to the Azure AD cloud. So currently it's something that you have to delegate to your user, or that you have to hand out a provisioning package to ensure that it's kind of automated, but still it's the user himself who has to join its systems to Active Directory, to Azure Active Directory. And then, of course, if you start using Intune, make sure that you have your policies in place. And this is something that's a different subject, and I'm sure that there will be lots of sessions about Intune and Intune management during this week. And then there is the question. Well, there is a question here.
I have a question. So on the client side, if you pre-enable automatic device registration, is there any harm in doing that? And in testing, it looks like it just adds some log entries. It tries to register, nothing happens. It might create some traffic where it's attempting to register and it's not successful because the backend isn't set up yet. Can you pre-enable automatic device registration without any impact to end users or the machines?
The question is, can you pre-enable automatic device registration?
Automatic device registration on Win 10 clients, yeah.
For
As a prerequisite for communicating with Azure, yeah.
well, you'd better set up your Intune first to do the device registration for Intune. Or do you mean the device registration from Active Directory to Azure AD?
So like I work with a team that manages the desktop side, right?
Yes.
And we got our server guys, they're setting up everything in the cloud, they got the AD schema there, other part, I'm trying to do mine. Can I pre-enable mine? Do we have to do ours at the exact same time, or should I do mine last?
You should do yours last. They have to set up, first you have to set up your
For it to be successful, I agree. If I pre-enable it, what's the harm?
the harm. If you pre-enable it, I think the harm will be that you get a lot of event entries that will tell you that something fails. And if you have some kind of...
If I look at it today, and I'm just getting like, I'm sorry to get into detail, but like event 100, which is not a failure, I think it sees something in the AD schema, but it doesn't complete registration. It's not getting like 101, 102, 103, 104. It's not getting into develop 100 right now.
But enabling registration is only one group policy setting, so there is no harm in waiting, postponing that single setting until everything is finished and ready.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, sorry. I just got a lot of pressure on my side, hence the question, right?
Okay.
They want me to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So.
I think you'd better wait till everyone is ready and then you click the switch and make sure that everyone is able to do the device registration.
Websites that we need to whitelist. We are using this third-party tools like Zscaler and Bluehost. What are the websites that we need to whitelist from the device? Windows 10 is more like it registers the device, right? If Windows 8 was used user,
Yeah.
Windows 10 is more device-based, right? So what are the particular websites that we need to whitelist?
So you want to whitelist what resources on the internet those clients have to access. There, I did see a list once, but I have to look it up. I'm not sure where I saw it. If you come to me after the session, I will hand you my card and we should communicate about that because I have seen the list, but I have to make sure where it is. Thank you for the questions. So the last one: are you going to invest in Azure AD Premium? This is something that your company has to answer. And if you want to have the extra features that are with Azure AD Premium, probably yes. And especially features like enterprise state roaming and the fact that you can see who did what on what system from your Azure portal. Those are things that probably you want to have from a corporate perspective. So, going back to my first introduction, if you want to try this out, check out Simon May, his blog, and just try it out. It's really a very easy 5-step approach, and then you're up and running. You can join your systems to Azure AD, and you can check things out and see how they work. During this week, I will do some more sessions. I will try to present I will also show how it works, like enterprise state roaming, how you can customize your start menu, and stuff like that. And for now, this has been this session. I don't know if I finished. Yes, I've just made the 20 minutes. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the conference.